Thursday evening, fellow freedmen, reparationists, allies, and guests. Welcome back to the Religion and Reparations Power Hour, the rare power hour, the most powerful hour on the web. I'm co host and co producer Kelly Matthews, coming to you live from Capitol Hill, D.C. Joining me are co host and fellow freedmen Cynthia McDonald, Arthur Ward, and Derrick Williams. Cynthia and Arthur are active members of the Freedmen Descendants of Chicago, and on our panel, they provide a space and for inclusion for all of our agnostic and atheist brothers and sisters. And within this capacity, they bring a different approach and context to the various religious subject matters we address. Derrick and I are both members of the DMV Freedmen, but Derrick's historical religious knowledge, acumen, and interest in Buddhism make him an essential, integral part of our team. I'm Kelly Matthews, the panel's resident Baptist Christian, and between the four of us, or some combination thereof, we come to you live at 7 p.m. every Thursday to discuss religion and reparations. Thank you so much for tuning in and sharing your time within this space, a safe space for dialogue, enlightenment, engagement, and action. To set the tone and intention of the show, I want to introduce to some and confirm with others the mission of RARE. The Religious and Reparations Elevations Power Hour is a place for conversation, communion, collective uplift, and action on behalf of the American Freedmen Reparations Movement. Our goal is to reignite the steadfast determination and focus of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference during the 1960s by convening all religions, not just Christianity, to the work. We want to work in unison to get on one accord and fulfill the Isaiah 40:31 scripture to renew our strength, soar on wings like eagles, run and not grow weary, and walk and not be faint until reparations for American freedmen are a reality. Family, I am setting the table tonight because Team Rare has been cooking all day. We are here to serve nourishment for the soul. As special guest, Rosalye Settles, aka Rose, ponders with Team Rare this evening's question. Could knowledge of the 10 worlds of Nichiren Buddhism help freedmen secure real world reparations? In full disclosure, I have known Rose for more than 20 years, and aside from being a beautiful person with a beautiful, calming spirit, this beautiful sister has a fascinating bio that I'm going to read and share in its entirety because her career path is also rare for a freedman. Rose Settles is originally from New York City and has called Washington, D.C. home for more than 20 years. Her interest in history as a child led her to a career as an archivist, working to identify, preserve, and make original source materials available to researchers. During her career as an archivist, she's worked at the NYC Municipal Archives and Studio Museum in Harlem, and additionally, she was a reference librarian at the CBS News Network. After relocating to the DMV, she worked at the National Archives and Records Administration's architect of the Capitol and in various information management positions at the Department of Treasury, including serving as the department's records manager office. She holds a BA from Pace University, an MA in American History from New York University, and an MS from Columbia University in the city of New York. Rose recently retired from federal service and is reacquainting herself with the simple joys of just being. and not just being busy. Family, check out the demographics on Archivist. I just want you to see how rare this woman is. Whites lead the field, 84.6%, followed by Hispanics at 6% and blacks at 3.4%. From the numbers, it's clear we have a truly rare guest joining us for the Rare Power Hour, which is all the more reason you should like, share, and invite family, friends, and fellow parishioners to join the conversation and engage with the panel in the chat. With that, I turn the mic over to Rosalye Settles to begin with an intro to Nichiren Buddhism, a synopsis of the 10 worlds, and how could this assist freedmen with our reparative justice claim. Rose, we extend a big welcome to you. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for being invited, and I look forward to our discussion and dialogue. Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism was founded by a Buddhist reformer in the 13th century, and it traces its origins back to Shakyamuni 2,500 years ago. And Shakyamuni believed that anyone and everyone can conquer their sufferings. Um, on April 28th, 1253, the Buddhist monk Nichiren identified chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo, the title of the Lotus Sutra, which is the highest teaching and is based on an expression of determination to embrace and activate our internal inherent potential. Nam Myoho Renge Kyo itself means devotion to the mystic law of cause and effect through sound. It emphasizes the idea that human beings are connected and that it's an illusion that we are separate. When one suffers, we all suffer. I was asked to talk about the 10 worlds, and the 10 worlds, in summation, are life conditions or things that we can experience from moment to moment. An analogy and a simple example would be, imagine you wake up in the morning to the enticing aroma of coffee brewing and something that you know is going to be tantalizing to your taste buds. You stumble out of bed, you pour some of that nice hot beverage into a big mug, anticipating how well it's going to taste. And then something happens and the mug slips from your hands. Then, as soon as you look at what happens, you have experienced at least 3 of the 10 worlds. But the good thing about the 10 worlds is within each and every world, there's the potential for Buddhahood. So the commonality of the first 6 worlds is that they appear and disappear and are governed by external circumstances. We're easily influenced by them and we're vulnerable to the circumstances, and we base our happiness on them and sometimes our identity. The first world is called hell. And this is the lowest life condition that we can experience. It's characterized by suffering and despair, and we perceive that we have no freedom, we act on impulse, and we want to destroy ourselves and everything around us. The second one is hunger. And in this instance, we're controlled by a desire for money, power, and status. We're at the mercy of our cravings and cannot control them. Now, this is not to say that desire is neither good nor bad, because we can have a desire for self-improvement, we can have a desire for justice, we can have a desire to be a better painter or just a better person. The third one is animality, and this one is ruled by instinct. And we're moved by impulse rather than reason, and it's a sort of kill to be killed, a lack of reason and conscience. The next one is called anger, and this one is an obsession with personal superiority or self-importance. There's a tendency to always compare yourself to other people and want to be better than them, and consumed by selfishness, greed, a distorted ego, arrogance, and contempt. It strongly displays a strong sense of awareness and self-control, but a lot of times when this world is manifested, people put on airs to impress other people, and they can be self-serving. The next one is called humanity. This one's a flat passive state. The conditions of tranquility enables us to distinguish between right and wrong and make distinctions. It exhibits self-control, but it's a very flat. The last one is called heaven. Now, this one is, you would think that it's a good place to be and experience. You experience joy when we fulfill our desires through our own efforts and well being, but it's not lasting and eventually it disappears. And again, it depends on external controls. So the first six are called the evil paths or the lower lives. The next four are considered the noble paths. And this particular set of worlds, we get to a place where we're not so easily influenced by our external circumstances and our environment. We kind of awaken to the fact that, I want to be a better person, but I also want to help you be a better person at the same time. So the seventh world is called learning. And when we're in this particular state or condition, we're making an effort to learn truth through teachings and the experiences of others. The next one is called realization. It's similar to the number seven, but we seek the truth not through others people's teaching, but we start looking at having our own direct perception of what the world is. The next one is called bodhisattva, and this is somebody who's aspiring to enlightenment at the same time, but they're equally determined to help other people do so. We're conscious of the bonds that connect us as human beings, and we realize that we cannot be happy without other people being happy. So we exhibit efforts to make them happy as well. The last one is called Buddhahood, and this one is an enlightened state. It's very dynamic, and when we're exhibiting this particular aspect, it's an inner state that makes it visible through our altruistic commitment to other people. When we're in this state, everything that happens to us, whether they are positive things or negative things, we look at them as an opportunity for us to experience fulfillment and joy.
Thank you, Rose. I invite my colleagues to jump in. Actually, I'm going to just pass the baton to Derrick because he's our Buddhist partial, Buddhist leaning panel co-host here, and I know he has a question to pose.
Okay.
Hey, everybody. Rose, my question would be, what fundamental principles or precepts with regards to Nichiren Buddhism do you think could help to mechanize the American freedmen community with regards to reparations? Let me try to narrow that down a little bit. What principles about Buddhism intersect with the idea of reparations, or are there any?
I think it can be useful to understand the 10 worlds because when there's an interchange in a person, it's reflected on the outside. If you transform people's awareness that they are interconnected and that the illusion that people can succeed and enjoy things at the expense of the natural world, including human beings, is false, there's an opportunity for a shift. The Buddhist principles say that we can't change society person by person. So if you have a gauge of where people are, then that gives you an opportunity to develop what your approach is. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. How could we use that? How do you think I should have carried on. How could American freedmen use that how could we use that with regards to reparations?
I think it depends. It gives you an opportunity to develop another strategy. Dialogue is one of the most powerful things that we have. So depending on who it is you're talking to, what organization that you're working from, once you have a sense of where they are, how they think, and what their mindset is, it gives you an opportunity if they are in a position of hunger and anger and rage. It gives you the opportunity to elevate them to another place. We
Okay.
can't persuade people. What we can do is educate and inform them, but show them the interconnectedness of everything. Because in our country, the people who started this country brought with them a notion of domination, that it's okay for human beings to benefit at the expense of everything and everybody, the people as well as the environment. They also brought with them from their history this notion that denies the truth of our interconnectedness. The thing that brings us together is that we are all human beings.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If I
That's
could,
reality.
if I could add to that,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? One of the things that I really like about, well, it's a couple of things. First of all, in Buddhism, in an overall sense, there is no concept of chosen people, and
Correct.
and of which we've had to deal with that in America because of a different philosophical / religious concept. In Buddhism, everyone is equal. It takes it, but everybody is not equal in terms of their realization of their fundamental self, and that's the function of a bodhisattva, to make other people aware of their best self, not higher self, but best self. And that is a matter of potential that everyone has to work on. The other thing that I think is so great about Buddhism in relationship to the reparations movement is because Buddhism tells you that you are responsible. On
Correct.
the one hand, you are responsible, but on the other hand, you have the power to fulfill your responsibilities. It does take effort, it does take determination, but everything that you need to make things happen is already inside of you. It's just up to you to pull that potential out through your practice.
Right. So it's person to person. The inner revolution in one person can change the destiny of a society and the world. So you transform people's awareness about their environment and their relationship to the environment, including people, then you change society. We can
So,
elevate the conversation beyond conversation to what I call a meaningful dialogue, which is sometimes a tightrope kind of thing when you're encountering people who are in the lower worlds. If they're in the anger place or if they're in the hungry life condition, when you know that, then you can shift yourself and see what's the best way for me to connect to this person life to life.
mhm.
Now remember, Derek. Now, these 10 worlds are not just static. They're not
Right.
just there, and you're not frozen in these worlds. It's a combination of what's happening to you in your environment, the 6 lower worlds, and what your determinations are to change as a person, which would comprise your actions in the 4 higher or the noble worlds. Also, you also have to understand a very important concept in Buddhism called the mutual possession of the 10 worlds. That means that all 10 worlds that uh, 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 Miss Rosa mentioned, talked about, are contained in all the other 10 worlds. So
Right.
it's a very dynamic thing, and it's up to you in terms of your understanding as far as how the environment is going to impact you, and your understanding as far as how much of the noble worlds are you going to pull out of you and make useful to yourself and your environment.
Right. That's why the 10 worlds are so dynamic because each world contains the potential for Buddhahood. There's another
Right,
concept that we won't get into tonight called 3,000 realms in a single moment.
right.
Right.
That in every given moment, there's an opportunity for a different choice.
Right.
Right. Can
I'm gonna
I
pass the baton to Cynthia. She was taking it
thank you.
anyway. Go on and run, girl. Go on and run, sister.
Mhm.
Okay. I think I want to preface something specifically for the people who may not necessarily know in the audience that uh, even though yes, Arthur and I would consider ourselves agnostic atheist, but we are also practitioners of Nichiren Buddhism. So we both chant Nam-myoho Renge Kyo, and we both came to follow the philosophies of Nichiren Daishonin as well. One of the other things that I think that could be helpful, and I know that Ms. Rose, you did allude to the 3,000 realms in a single moment, or Ichinen Sanzen.
Ichinen Sanzen.
Yes. I want to kind of go with a little bit of the history of how specifically Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism actually spread here in the United States that could also be a strategy in order for us to achieve reparations. The third president, Daisaku Ikeda, wrote how many volumes now? 30 volumes of Human Revolution.
The Human Revolution. Right.
Yes. And the first volume was basically the clarion call that he took in order for, that he picked up from Jose Todo, which was the second president of the SGI, to actually start to spread Buddhism in the Western world. So he came to Hawaii, he came to different places in America, including Chicago, where Arthur and I are from, and he also went to Canada. Now, the SGI has about 192 countries that have practitioners of Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism. And he started it with what Ms. Rose alluded to was person-to-person dialogue. They would come to different meetings, in a lot of times in people's homes, just to go ahead and spread and talk about the Daishonin's philosophy when it came to Buddhism. And one of the most powerful things, and this is something that really grasped me when I started to practice, which actually led me to being atheist, by the way, was the simplicity of not necessarily, number one, being responsible for being your best self, and how to use tenets of the philosophy in order to achieve that. And also knowing that you have the wherewithal, as we're talking about the 10 worlds, even if you find yourself in a lower world, using effort in order to get you into the 4 upper worlds, a hearer, a seer, a bodhisattva, and also one that achieves Buddhahood. So actually, I am a big fan of discourse between, person to person, because that's the way that you're able to change minds. We as freedmen can also utilize that particular strategy when we are, one, trying to educate our fellow freedmen about the justice claim and why we are owed, and also to make them engage in why it's important for them to be politically savvy and also politically educated, so that we can achieve our reparations.
Yes.
No one actually is able to really, and this is one of the things that I really enjoy about Buddhism, and this is why, I personally stepped away from Abrahamic religions, is because Abrahamic religions has a tendency to have you look outside of yourself in order to get anything done.
Right.
But in actuality, what Buddhism teaches is like everything that you need in order for you to get anything done in your life is already in you. You just need the vehicle to get it out.
Right.
And this is something that I feel that is extremely powerful about this philosophy, because that is something that we can utilize in order to enlighten others, in order for them to realize that we already have the tools in order for us to be able to achieve the thing that we are looking to achieve, the goal that we have placed in front of us. And Miss Rose and Arthur knows that SGI is big on goals. Y'all know it.
Yeah.
Yeah. What goal did you set? I'm on play right now. But this is something I love that too, because that is something that we can definitely use in different aspects in order for us to put forward what we are trying to goal as a community, right? Mm-hmm. As an electorate, that we know that we are old. The history and empirical evidence is there. And because of that, we're going to actively advocate for this, because it is ours to have. Right. And we're going to place the goal there in front of us. And the only thing that we need is a signature from the president and a proper bill to be voted on in Congress.
And don't forget, it is our responsibility to get.
Yes.
Not the white people.
No.
Not any of these oppositionists out here. This is
Right.
our responsibility to clarify, make policy, and to get done.
Right.
That's why I have this adamancy in the way that I deal with Buddhism, because, and part of it is because of my Buddhist practice.
Word.
So some of the people that I've listened to that are Buddhists that support reparations have their viewpoint on it is essentially a breakdown of systems. Is that something that you're aware of, Rose, with regard to the idea of breakdown of systems? And is that something you'd like to speak on?
I don't think a breakdown, when I hear breakdown, I think, deconstructing and, taking things down to the foundation. You know what I mean? In my mind, when I hear that word, I don't necessarily think I think it's possible because we are thinking, intelligent, creative people that we can change what needs to be changed and change what needs to be changed and disregard that which is not working for everyone, including us.
Yes.
That's where the wisdom comes in. That's where through chanting, the wisdom and courage comes up so that you know what's the best action to take.
Right.
So if it works, we'll keep it. If it doesn't, then we'll think about something else. I think everybody is going to bring their skills, talents, and abilities to the process. Because one of the things I think is reflective historically here and relates to Buddhism is something I'd like to share from Nichiren Daishonin. He said that if the minds of living beings are impure, their land is also impure. But if their minds are pure, so is their land. There are not two lands, pure or impure, in themselves. The difference lies solely in the good or evil of their minds.
That is so true. That is so true and so powerful. And we're actually even seeing that right now displayed in our own land. I mean, just think about if we just take some of the recent decisions that came out of SCOTUS. I mean, and there's a bunch of them, right? And a lot of them are being motivated by their own mind, their own belief systems, their own ideologies per se, right? Not necessarily really thinking about the well-being of the electorate in of itself. Correct. So when we're talking about Daishonin, talking specifically about about the land being impure because of the mind. Even if you, Arthur, myself, Kelly, Miss Rose are all of one mind, and we're saying that this is the right way in order for well-being to be achieved. However, we have the ones that are over us that are not on the same page. That's definitely going to pollute the entire land because we're being affected by that, right?
Right. So we have an opportunity to change that. That means that we have to work where we are to get people who are open to another perspective in places where policy and things are being made.
Word.
That's the work.
You know
because
what?
Again, transform the people.
So based on that, I want to engage the chat. There's a question. So do Buddhists move together for a cause, or do they collectively move individually to get something done?
I got the answer to that.
I want Rose to jump in and.
I'm sorry.
You got all the answers, Oracle.
I got. And Rose is familiar with the Go Show that I'm probably. She more than likely is familiar with the Go Show that I'm talking about.
Well, the thing about that is, many in mind, one in mind, many in body.
In body, yes. Right.
Okay. Again, transform the people's awareness, you transform the environment.
Right.
So the issue of reparations is beside ourselves, who are the people of those who have come before us, who had toiled, who had made sacrifices. We have to work wherever it is that we are with whatever skill or ability we have
Mm-hmm.
to change that thinking so that
Right.
we have more people who are engaged of many in body, one in
One in
mind,
mind.
right? It's about trying to understand that what affects one affects all. The reason why reparations are appropriate is because of the failure of Reconstruction,
Yes.
the failure of GI coming back from World War II, not having access to the GI Bill
Yes.
to buy property and do the ability to wealth bill.
Right.
That's why we have the reasons why. The question is, how can we get people to shift and understand that it affects everybody? You know, you can use the analogy of climate change. Climate change affects everybody if you want to believe it or not.
That's
We
right.
can come together around that. How can we, how can we recycle better? How can we get, corporate America to think of more innovative ways to not pollute? So that's an example of one thing that we can come together on. I believe that we can come together on this issue. However, it's going to take a sophisticated way to do this. We will need everybody's skill and knowledge to do this.
Yes.
It's a heavy lift, but that does not mean it cannot take place. But the question is, what is each individual committed to do?
You know,
So
Miss
Rose,
Rose, Buddhism has actually played a part in reparations in the United States before. A lot of people, a lot of people aren't familiar with that. They don't think of Buddhism and the Japanese American community kind of being together, linked together. But I actually read an article called "Karma," the Karma of the Nation. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. It's by a gentleman named Duncan Rikun Williams. And essentially what he did is the article's kind of inspired off of Ta-Nehisi Coates' work and the present reemergence, if you will, of the energy of reparations, but specifically for Black Americans. So I guess in 1993, they started having these spaces where they were talking about reparations and kind of, um, in a sense, of reconciliation, but they kind of framed it about reparations with regards to the Japanese Americans and what some of the people went through. The first people that were taken into internment apparently were the priests, and they were Buddhist priests that were here. They were Japanese Americans. And the gentleman was making the point that you would think that the first people they would take would be people who would present themselves as seem like the radicals, but they actually went after the holy man, for lack of a better word, or the man of philosophy, right? So he was actually breaking down how reparations and Buddhism actually have a relationship already in this country with regards to the Japanese Americans. And in some of his work, he, and maybe you can kind of like open this up a little bit, but he kind of goes into the idea that karma is not individual, but it's collective, which is kind of what you were talking about in a sense. This idea that for karma of a nation, that the nation would kind of have to see itself, right?
Correct.
And, right. So you wanna kind of touch on that if you can. I'm not sure if.
Well, I think in my mind, similar to what James Baldwin said in The Fire Next Time.
Come on now. My favorite book.
Until America has the courage to look itself in the mirror and accept what has happened, no substantive change will come. And I'm not saying a blaming, shaming kind of way. I'm just saying, look in the mirror and this is what we have. Then the question becomes, how can we turn this poison into medicine? How can we make that better? The karma of the thing about Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism, it says that any karma can be changed into something that's positive.
Right.
So we
Right.
can use this as an opportunity to change this
Right.
because it affects everybody. You might not think so, but if we unpack some things, you will see that it does. The
Right.
inability of people to have quality health care and education and things of that nature has a reverberation.
Mhm.
And there is a kind of, how should I say, a simultaneity of both individual and country karma. Okay.
Correct.
Yes,
And the
there is a
fact
simultaneity.
and I have to look at one of the things about Buddhism is this notion if there's no hope, you create some. I look
Right.
at the fact that Tanishi Coates was before the Congress talking about this. That's a sign that things are changing. I believe that things will change. It might be glacial, but we have to, in my mind, we have to accept every win that we get and use that to propel us to something else.
Right. And Kyoto Williams, I think that's what she was getting at when she said deconstruction. I should have been clearer about that. She meant deconstruction of whiteness, essentially. That's what she was saying, that essentially whiteness affects Americans of European descent, and it also affects those who are not. So, and an idea, reparations, it included cash payments or a financial, material aspect, but it also included this kind of breakdown or deconstruction of whiteness that's often hard for even white people to see with regards to their position. So sorry, I should have been clear about that, but you broke that down well. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome. Well, it's interesting because I had a similar conversation with some friends over the weekend, and I think there's a sense of urgency because things are starting to shift.
Right.
And things are moving in a direction that some Americans are starting to feel uncomfortable with. I'll say that because they feel like Baldwin said their identity is at stake.
Right.
And for them to reevaluate who they are means that they have to accept some responsibility. And they don't want to do that. But again, I I hold on to hope that things are moving the same way our forefathers and foremothers were able to do what they have done with less resources and knowledge than we have today. I know that it can be done. Again, it's a heavy lift, but as we start doing it, the momentum has changed.
Yes.
Say, but I did want to put into this visual record a passage, a quote from Nichiren Daishonin himself that founded this religion, or rather philosophy. And I think that this particular quote relates directly to us when it comes to this reparations movement. And I'm quoting now. It's from the Gosho called On Itai Doshin. If Itai Doshin, or many in body, one in mind, prevails among the people, they will achieve all their goals. Whereas in Dotai Ishin, or one in body, different in mind, they can achieve nothing remarkable. The more than 3,000 volumes of Confucianism and Taoist literature are filled with examples. King Chao of Yin led 700,000 soldiers into battle against King Wu of Chu and his 800 men. Yet King Chao's army lost because of disunity, while King Wu's men defeated him because of perfect unity. Even an individual at cross purposes with himself is certain to end in failure. Yet 100 or even 1,000 people can definitely attain their goal if they are of one mind. Though numerous, the Japanese will find it difficult to accomplish anything because they are divided in spirit. On the contrary, I believe that although Nichiren and his followers are few in number, because they act in Itai Doshin, they will accomplish their great mission of propagating the Lotus Sutra. Many raging fires are quenched by a single shower of rain, and many evil forces are vanquished by a single great truth.
Right. And I think we've got examples in our history that that shows and illustrates Itai Dongshin. I always go back to the Montgomery bus boycott.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
You know, those
Yes.
people walked, did car sharing 381 days.
Yep.
They were focused and committed to this one goal.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody participated the best way they could.
Mhm.
So
I also,
I
I'm
think
sorry,
it's
Ms. Rose,
possible.
continue.
It's possible.
I also want to kind of just go back to Sister Fax's question about, Buddhists actually, if you can put up the question one more time. Oh, so do Buddhists move together for a cause, or do they collectively, individually, or do they collectively move individually to get something done? I'm pretty sure that Miss Rose and Arthur knows, like usually, like when we are in a concert together, like with Buddhists decide to chant um, and to do like gongyo, I after gongyo, which is basically chants that Buddhists do along with chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. They are from the second and 16th chapter of the Lotus Sutra. And one of the portions of there's 3 silent prayers that actually comes after that. And one of the prayers is, I pray that the great vow for worldwide Kosen Rufu be fulfilled, and that the Soka Gakkai International develop in this endeavor for countless generations to come. Now, no matter what country, what language you speak, whatever it is, like every person that vows to actually practice Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism learns Gongyo in the way that it is in front of us, which is in Japanese. But also when we're actually talking about, praying as together, and it's not the same way as like, you would look at like a Christian or Islam prayer. This is more like this is more like getting on one accord to actually push for a goal that we would like to see achieved. And Kosen Rufu itself loosely means worldwide peace. And I have always said this, that the moment that freedmen are repaired, the world is repaired. And the reason being is because a lot of the economic and social burdens have been placed on our group since the inception of our ancestors getting here in the 1600s. We actually, if you really even look at the history of the crops that were produced out of America, and how several countries, including Great Britain, was very much so tied into our economy for goods and services that were being exported, like cotton, in order for them to fuel their textile industry. It wouldn't have been done if it wasn't for the cash crop that we actually grew here, cultivated here, and then got to them and treated here. And also, when countries actually tied themselves into some shape, way, or form into the American economic system, they actually received a reward too. We got to make sure that we actually are very much so knowledgeable and understanding of the history of how we got there. Like, there would not be in America to be as rich as it is if it was not for slavery. And it would not have been there if it wasn't for our ancestors that were brought over from Western and Central Africa, mixed in also with white folk, in order for them to produce their descendants that are here today. So it's like there are actually different outlets and organizations that may be, more white people. I don't want to say white people leaning, but more white people who happen to be a part of them, right? I think specifically about the American Humanist Society, or the Humanists, and then they put out like a humanist newsletter every month. This past month, they actually put out Reparations, Why We Cannot Wait. And this is a predominantly white organization. And they are recognizing that we can see empirically how the legacy of slavery and Jim Crow and black codes and redlining, et cetera, has affected a group of people. Yet the country got rich off of their ancestors' back and them now, but they don't want to acknowledge that they are owed. And they don't want to acknowledge that it is up to the country in order for them to actually rock the repair. And check this out. We already know that there are other people who happen to be part of the diaspora who have justice claims as well. Shout out to my brother from another mother, Philip Grant, that's in the chat right now. One of the vice president of the Barbados Humanist Society organization. You can correct me if I'm wrong, Philip. I appreciate if I get the name wrong, but there is a justice claim in Barbados too, because slavery happened there as well. We already know that the world follows suit and what happens in America. So if this is the domino that falls right here first, that is going to be a domino effect that's going to be actually shown all over the world. Yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
You gotta kind of sit with that for a minute. Okay,
cool. No worries.
Let me sit with it a minute. Agreed. And again, to me, it just shows the interconnectedness of everything. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We're connected. And it makes some people uncomfortable. To say the least. It makes them angry, but the fact is we're all human beings. Nothing exists in isolation. There's the concept of the interconnectedness of all phenomena. You might not like it, but that's just the reality. So I sort of think of something else from The Color Purple. Until you do right by us, nothing's going to happen good.
That's right.
Every generation will in this country anyway, every generation will continue to fight the same fight.
Right.
And I don't think it's lost on me that the Chicago Highland shooter turned on his quote unquote own people. Yeah. And they keep turning a blind eye to the cancer, the rot within the white community. I mean, I don't think he fired his last bullet before he was already the lone wolf. And we didn't want, as a country, to acknowledge that these white boys come from white families that sign on the gun permit to get an arsenal to go out and kill all kinds of people. Now, I don't think that his father that did that for him, and if you go back to Sandy Hook, that shooter's mother did it for him. They had legal firearms. I want to say that again. They had legal firearms from their parents. And what we're dealing with is a white condition of pathology that no one wants to say out loud. We want to put them in the corner and label them as one-offs. But the white community, I believe, continues to let it happen because most of the carnage is in communities either they don't care about or they applaud the carnaging. One less N-word to deal with. One less faggot, when you go to the Florida incident, to have in our midst. When they are carrying out, what some people call race soldier philosophies, the white community seems to be comfortable with it. And no one wants to address the white family. What are you doing in your home when you serve your Cheerios and this is what you produce? Everyone wants to say, but Chicago, when we talk about, policemen shooting us down. What about Chicago? What about Chicago? Okay, white folks, what about your son in the room next to you? What about him? What about him out there in that garage? You haven't spoke to him in a week. You don't know what he out there doing, and quite frankly, you don't want to know. But now you're all on the news, and he's disturbed, or he was bullied, or he was this, or he was that. Now we got to get the sob story of how he was jacked up for his lunch money. Who cares? Who wasn't?
Right. Right.
Go to a karate class and get over it. I
Or
mean,
you,
so you
right.
killed everybody.
Right. Or you
'Cause you
got,
can't.
you got the situation that happened in Wisconsin with Rittenhouse. His mama actually drove him up to the site.
Drove him
Drove him.
there.
Mhm.
And
Right.
he's
This
from
is
Illinois
not.
too.
These
He's from Illinois.
kids are aided and abetted by their mamas and their daddies and their uncles and their grandpappies.
Right.
And nobody wants to say the thing out loud that we all need to confront, and that there is pathology in the white community, and there is a situation within their family structure that continuously breeds these destructive human beings in our midst. And now they're turning on themselves. So now, Malcolm's chickens coming home to roost is really coming to light in our own generation.
I want to piggyback on what you said, Kelly, for a couple of questions concerning the karma that came up in the chat. I believe Little Fear asked, like, when is karma? And then Sister Fate talked about, so can we talk about karma, or is that not applicable to Buddhism? Karma is absolutely applicable to Buddhism. We don't necessarily look at karma in the way that like Hindus look at karma. They kind of look at it as that you're born into the station that you're born in because of whatever that you did in your former life, and
Right.
so, and that's the reason why there is a caste system, even though that Hindus don't necessarily always want to acknowledge that there's a caste system. There's absolutely a working caste system that's
Right.
appropriate to Hindus in India, and also actually shows up here. But regardless, the way that we look more so at karma is not just like action and reaction, but a lot of it has to do with what happens not only with you, but also what happens with your family, what happens as a nation, what happens in your individual groups. That's very much so interwoven and connected to whatever type of effect that you can actually get.
Yeah.
And some of the karma that we would absorb has to do with some of our own decisions and actions, right? But there's also karma that we will absorb because of the environment that we're in. Now, if we take it, for example, some of these young white guys who are activated into the point where they're feeling angsty, so I just gotta get an AR-15 to shoot up people, and they are taking some of the ideologues that come from their own karma or their own family, their own environment, that says that they are absolutely privileged in order for them to do this. I remember I was just at a conference where I was giving a speech specifically about Black folks and white religion. And it was interesting how you saw from the time that one of the first colonial towns, Jamestown in Virginia, was founded in the early 1600s, how before there was the social construct of race, you had basically Europeans looking at themselves, or specifically those people, as Christian first, English second, and then a man or a woman or what have you. And even sometimes they would even call themselves freeborn. In other words, they were not indentured to anybody. And to be a Christian English freeborn man was the proper station that you wanted to be in. And then it translated to Christian English freeborn man that happens to be white, because with that comes position, power, and privilege. Okay? This is an idea that has been passed down for multiple centuries within this group of people. Multiple centuries. It is not a far mental leap to see that why the majority of mass shooters are young white men. It's not a mental leap at all. And the reason being is because, especially when you look at their families and when you look at, the general sentiment of being a young white man, specifically in America, it comes with that you are supposed to have certain things. You are supposed to have wealth. You're supposed to have land. You're supposed to have power. You're supposed to have position. And if I see or even perceive anything that would threaten that, it's your ass. And this is why we have such an active, warped sensibility amongst this group of people. And a lot of it has to do with the karma that has been generating for centuries and centuries and centuries. And because we are here, we're part of that karma too.
But we have the ability to change this.
Yes, we can.
We have the ability to change this. And
Yes,
I also think we need to remember that this country was established on violence.
That's correct. That's right.
Again, that's the model that was brought.
Right.
So the politics, I remember the politics of violence. Those people who feel like they are not being heard, that they're being shortchanged for whatever reason, that is their action.
Mm-hmm.
That is their action. So
and that's their collective karma too. That's
right.
their
Cause and effect. Cause and effect.
Yep.
Cause and effect. But the beautiful thing about it is we have the ability to change it. And a lot of times people think of karma as negative, but karma is positive and negative.
Right.
Okay. So a lot of times in America, people look at the negative, but the positive part is it that you bring in a lifetime. First thing, you made the choice to be here in this time, to be a person of color in this country.
Right.
You made that choice. So
I struggle with that, Miss Rose, but we'll talk later. About choice. That's a continued struggle. Yeah.
No,
it makes more sense to me because I was raised Catholic and I could never accept the fact that I was born a flawed human being. They could never explain to me why the world was the way it was and why certain people were having a different kind of experience than I was having.
Sure.
That I would spend the rest of my life trying to get myself right.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? But the notion of karma makes sense. It's like cause and effect. But the good thing about it is we have positive karma. The fact that we have this technology, the fact that we're free to be able to see each other and talk about this, we can change this negative karma in our own self.
Yes.
And the greater collective, which is this country, once you understand that this country was built on violence and domination, that's what they know.
Right.
I want to have an opportunity for them to know something else.
Right. I want to see if Arthur and Miss Rose can answer Roz's question. Can we place that on the big screen?
Will Buddhists help white people who practice it to see freedmen as equals who deserve reparations?
They have that choice when they have a one-on-one dialogue.
Yeah.
That moment, they have that choice.
Right.
So let me interject and ask you, since 1% of Americans say that they're Buddhists, which is, I guess, I looked at it, 1.5 million people. And a lot of what I'm hearing is an individual thing within Buddhism, your individual walk, where you are as an individual. How do we exponentially activate that 1.5 million to get them on the right side of history, to get them to the Buddhahood world, where we can work in unison within the reparations movement?
Again, we believe it's a one-on-one kind of thing or groups. When you're in, that's what I'm saying. It has to be a strategic and multi-pronged approach.
Right.
It's about having these elevated dialogues, not conversations, not confrontational, not belligerent.
Right.
Encountering people where they are and trying to plant the seed for an opportunity for them to think in a different way and maybe have a different perspective. Once we plant the seed, then it's possible for that person to change. And then maybe their mother in their house or their neighbor or somebody in the grocery store. And one of the things I hold on to is this quote It says, the one who plants trees, knowing that he will never sit in their shade, has at least started to understand the meaning of life.
Right.
So our foremothers and forefathers who were able to get us to this point,
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
were committed enough to do the work, even though they were not going to be here to see it.
Right.
So they're
I
planting
like to
trees.
I like to add to that, if I may, um, about that, the having that dialogue and really activating it with knowledge. I know for me specifically, I'm kind of like you, Miss Rose. Even though I wasn't raised Catholic, I went to Catholic school for the majority of my life, so I was kind of like little C Catholic and big Roman C Catholic.
Mm.
And I know that some of the things that actually helped me out of my deconversion was through actually being approached with knowledge. I know that like that's something that Daisaku Ikeda is very much so big on, is really having those dialogues and conversations with people in order for them to actually, come into the knowledge of what this philosophy is also about, which is what we call shakabuku, right? That's when you're introducing people to the practice.
Right.
We can use that same type of technique of shakabuku, going to individuals, going to groups, going to different people, and giving them the good gospel of freedmen. And what that means is basically in showing them through not confrontation, not through animus or not through vitriol, what it is that what we are pushing for. And we're doing it in a knowledge way. We're giving you knowledge in order for you to have the opportunity to change your mind. I know that I will change my mind just about anything, as long as like I'm giving the proper empirical information or and evidence to say this is so. Like I was a person who did not think that reparations was owed to freedmen. I was definitely one of those people who really thought about that whole bootstrapperism, is because that has been, something that was like pounded into my head from when I was a child, right? But once I actually was approached with the data, with positionality, and also historical evidence to back that up, I changed my mind. And we have to have that same um, mindset, specifically, not to be repetitive, that we can use that same notion of, okay, so what brought you here? What brought you to this particular space?
Mhm.
And a lot of that is through knowledge. Okay, well, let me go ahead, and now that I have knowledge, I can go ahead and basically make sure that that particular knowledge happens to be given to others as I counter them on the by and by.
Right. And we have to understand who that person is and what's more likely to do it.
Right.
Because, people know Buddhism through us. It's how we show up in the space.
Yes.
It's how we
Agreed.
show up in the space.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So, that's our opportunity. And the more we understand the 10 worlds and where people are, then we can be strategic in an approach in a non-confrontational way. So
Hmm.
change people awareness, you change society. An internal change in one person can change society.
That's right.
And if we
So,
get people in positions and places where policy and things are happening, we increase the opportunity and the chance that things can be different than what we know.
hmm
From what I'm hearing from Rose and the panel, um, we've all been introduced, as at least in our homes, to Christianity. And we grow up and read and learn and have experiences and come to our own self outside of mom and dad guiding us in a specific way to where we land as individuals. And as a Christian, I just want to say I remain a Christian because I really stand close to the KISS mentality. Cynthia is nice. She drops the last S, but I mean it from the military aspect. Keep it simple, stupid. And for me, with Christianity, ignorance is bliss. I know that all of the books of the Bible aren't published. I know that the people that hold the other books um, are not freedmen. And if they're not releasing it, I'm feeling like it's not in their best interest to release all books, all canons. And so with that knowledge, I don't take the Bible literally. And Arthur put the screws on me a lot. What do you believe about, the chosen people? What do you feel about that as a descendant of American slave? I don't feel nothing about it, because to me it's allegory. To me, there could be a whole book that they're holding in a vault somewhere that say, "Sight, this was all a joke." So I'm not sinking everything I do into this book that's been presented to my people by white folks, that the other books that have not been released is held in a vault by white folks. And if it's held in a vault, that means it's saying something they don't want to be said.
Well, I can't.
Well, Miss Kelly, I can say this, and this is actually from Bible scholars who are actual Christians. The majority of them agree that the way that we even got like our canon, like now, the 66 books that are mostly held as like, this is like the particular canon that is going to be espoused. I know Catholics have more, but you do have instances where we are dealing with a book right now full of books that were copies of a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Remember, they were handwritten copies before they were actually printed over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, right? So, and then you have instances where paragraphs, lines, and even whole pages were let out. You even have a point where like some of the ones who are actually doing the copy say, "Oh, that don't make no sense. I'm just gonna go ahead and add that here." So I think that I don't necessarily pounce on Christians in themselves. I have my own issue with the religion, but if you want to believe that, that's you. But if a person actually puts it in the historical text, in this historical reference, that the Bible in of itself is a book that was written over the span of around 6,000 years, and they will be reflective of the time that it was written. And if we put it in that particular aspect, I'm cool. Only time I have an issue with it is when the Bible is used to legislate. This is exactly why even the founding fathers, who call themselves English Christian men, also came up with the very first amendment, which is the established called the Congress shall make no law establishing any type of religion whatsoever, nor infringe on them on the way that you practice.
And the other thing too, when you were
but they
saying,
didn't
Kelly,
state
about
religion though.
Kelly, when you were saying about something being locked in a vault, things that are real cannot be hidden in a vault. They just cannot. They maybe a better knowledge of an aspect of reality, a better explanation may be locked in that vault, but because all of us live in reality, somebody else will come about to make that explanation.
I agree with you. When you say things can't be locked in a vault, that's
Right.
what I'm saying. When I read the Bible, I'm not taking it literal. It is not something I'm applying literally. I tease it out to apply to my freedman life. I choose the scriptures that are positive and work for me. And I know Buddhism is about being an individual and looking inward. I look inward. For me, growing up in the church gave me a voice. It gave me a place to be instead of with my friends doing other things, and it made me more of a person that I wanted to grow up to be, so to speak. So I mean, I'm not taking it literal, is what I'm saying.
But if you notice this.
And Black Jesus is a whole nother thing.
Black Jesus. But if you notice this, Kelly, in every religion that purports to explain any aspect of reality to a religion, every one of them tries to explain cause and effect because everybody sees it. You reap what you sow in this religion. This another wording in another religion. Every one of them sees cause and effect.
Yeah, that's
every one of them see this karmic process going on in people's lives, so that's reality and people see it. But then when it comes to religion and why it cannot be trusted is because every religion is centered around protecting a particular culture. And if we're dealing with reality, especially universal reality, it cannot be locked within a culture.
I think that you said something really important, Kelly, too. And I think, and I just want to bring it back to your remembrance, is that you say you pick and you choose what you're going to make applicable to your life, you know?
Right.
And I can definitely say, as a practicing Christian for almost years, a very long time, I used to do the same thing. Like, I was a person that would pick and choose, or like we like to say, cherry picking, you know, what makes sense. Like, you know, basically chew on fruit and then spit out the pit, right?
Mhm.
That the only thing, and then even Brother LaFear said it too. He said, chew the meat and spit the fish bones out. You know, even though I like fish, but that's neither here nor there. Regardless of that, we have to also, you know, be more understanding that when you are discussing, like, you know, belief systems, faith, cultures, and things of that nature in this particular context, there's always going to be a point where if I'm cherry picking and or just picking the things that's applicable to my life, but I don't want to, you know, hold on to the things that don't make sense, which I think that we can agree in the Bible. There's a lot of things that are this like very fantastical that doesn't, you know, really make a lot of sense. Like a talking donkey. I don't understand that, but that's neither here nor there.
You've never seen Shrek?
Well,
You know,
You got
Makes
me,
sense
sis.
to me.
You got me,
It's-
sis. You got me,
Right.
sis. You know, I mean, but like, I think that is something. But regardless of that, like, if we're hailing, because, like, you know, in Christianity specifically, remember, there's over 45,000 different denominations on how, you know, one chooses to practice said religion, right? And there's even, like, you know, dichotomy, trichotomies, multichotomies within itself to say that, okay, no, I'm the true Christian because I baptize in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Ghost. No, well, I'm the true Christian because I baptize in Jesus' name. You know, and just like, it's semantics, you know what I'm saying? Instead of just saying, like, can we just go by universal principles of well-being that affects us all, like cause and effect. This is, like, you know, Arthur pointed out very well, that this is a general principle that is observed by human beings, and we have been observing this for a very long time. You remember, was it Sir Isaac Newton that came up with the for every action there's a equal reaction. Opposite and equal reaction. So we get this as a principle, not only, you know, as far as, like, you know, some religions that have picked this up, but we also see this in science as well. So I think that, like, when, and especially going back to Miss Rose's point about making sure that when we are discussing things, especially with stuff like this, like, it's important to kind of just, like, identify the person where they are, and then get to the point where we can agree, right? You know, we can choose, like, the areas where we can say, hey, you know, I may not, you know, completely jive on you with this, but I think that there's a universalness that we can both agree on, that this is something that we should push.
You know what? And there's one more thing I got to state in here, and this is what makes Buddhism the outlier. Buddhism is not a belief system.
Right.
Not at all.
Right.
It is an understanding system.
Right.
It's a toolbox, just like science or the scientific method is a toolbox to get you to an understanding about the entirety of existence or certain aspects of it. Buddhism is the same thing. Beliefs, if you approach Buddhism as something to believe in, that is absolutely the wrong approach. That's why they tell you to experiment with it.
Okay, wait a minute. We're going to give Rose the last word. It is 8:18, fam. We have gone over almost 20 minutes. That's how deep this is. So, good. Rose, you get the last word.
I look at it this way. Like I said earlier, I know what you believe by how you show up in this space. I know what you believe by the way you talk with me. You don't have to tell me where you go on Saturday or where you go on Sunday. It's how you show up in the space. Do you see me as a
Yes.
human being? Can you see me as something and someone that deserves respect? It doesn't
Yes.
matter where I came from. You know, it's about where I'm going. Can you see me as a human being? If
Mhm.
you can do that, then many things are possible.
Right.
Whoa, that is a
Yes.
perfect place to put a pin in it. And look, Derrick wanted to jump in. I had something else I wanted to say, but
Thank you so much
Freedmen.
for the Thank you so much for the opportunity to be here.
Oh, don't exit so quickly because there's so much more to talk about. I'm thinking about a part two, but Freedman family and honored guests. That's our hour and almost 20 minutes. Rose done pushed us to the 20. I don't think we ever did this before. Hour and 20 minutes of power. And I don't know about you, but I keep saying it. No one's saying anything. This spiritual edification makes me want seconds. I want a part two. Are you guys open to flesh this out a little more? Because Derrick definitely didn't get his on. I mean, Derrick can get in there. And brother, I never heard this brother be this quiet, so I know he was just being polite. But
Miss Kelly, you already said when we had the production meeting that we was gonna have to do a part two. We foresee this. We are prophetic.
Yeah, we are the oracle. Well, if Rose is open, you don't have to answer now. But our next show is July the 21st. Not next week, but the week after. To go deeper, have a deeper dive. I know you wanted to bring a guest with you. Maybe he would be able to do it at that time. The beautiful thing about the guest is this is a young freedman brother that practices Buddhism, and he's going to present Buddhism as a young freedman brother walking these streets and how he uses his Buddhism practice to maneuver in this world. So if we're all down for the deeper dive, we are committed to bringing this part two to our next show. And since we all know the topic, I'm asking our listeners to connect with us on social media: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Rare is a By the People media production, and we are everywhere you are. Please hit us up with your questions, comments, and musings. And in return, we will address you directly and virtually chew the fat in our next episode. Again, that will be Thursday, July 21st at 7 p.m. And in closing, we would like to leave the audience with a scripture, a quote, a word, if you will, that serves as a tie that binds. Something we can all rally around regardless of our religious beliefs or none at all. And Rose has graciously offered the following quote from Daisuke
Daisaku.
Daisaku Ikeda. Thank you for correcting me. Buddhist philosopher and honorary president of Soku Gakkai, which states, a great inner revolution is just a single individual will help change the destiny of an entire society, and further will cause a change in the destiny of humankind. Peace and love to all. Amen. Ashe. Assalamu alaikum and good night.